Another question that I get asked a lot, and you probably do too, I'd love your perspective on it, is if we incorporate the Zen method of making everything really simple and clean, and we present it and it goes really well, and then you get all these requests from your compatriots about, hey, send me your deck, but then they don't know what they said to it. So how do you solve the problem of keeping everything very simple and clean for the delivery, but then people wanting to spread your idea, but it doesn't make sense without just the slides?
Well,
what do you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I talked about it in the book. What I say is that they're different. So they're completely different mediums, of course. So you have to have a good document, and you have to have the good visuals for your live talk. And you might have, let's say it's a master's thesis or a PhD thesis, which, 500 pages, something like that. Well, that's really the bulk of it. But few people are going to go through that, except your professors.
And your mom.
And mother. But then you have the handout, which is maybe, I don't know, what's it going to take? A medical paper might be, 12 pages, 24? That's still a lot for busy people to get through. But it has far more detail, and it's written in a way that's understandable. And some of the graphics might be from the slide and they'll be put in there. But the actual talk is a far different thing. So the idea of killing two birds with one stone, to me, just seems silly.
So my answer is actually kind of opposite of that in a way. I say that if you have your slides done, that you should put all your what you say verbally in the notes. So, and then what you do is you distribute your slides as a PDF. So you don't actually send them the actual Keynote file or PowerPoint file. You actually send them a PDF where you've got your slide here and everything you say to it. So that the visuals are always coupled with the text.
Right.
It's just one way to.
No, this is very good, and this would work if you like. This wouldn't work for my 400, slide type of deal.
True.
But this works very well. If, for example, Guy Kawasaki, if you see even his 45-minute keynotes, usually 10 slides. I mean, basically that's it.
That's true.
And he talks around it, and he's there, and it's all about him. But this
it's more like a stage or a prop. His slides become kind of part of the background.
But you could have the slides because maybe it's kind of a key thing to remember. Well, let's not say literally Guy's slides, but something like that. So where this was more quantitative displays. And then you could have, not written in bullet point form, but you have a bit more space to write actual sentences there. But even better than that would be, I think, a proper document where you took that image out and put it in a document, because this might not be enough space.
That's true.
And then again, it's a constraint that forces you to write
So that's
tight.
a lot of work. And I get that question too. Like, I'm so busy. You really expect me to create my slides and then desktop publish a document. So how long do you think people should spend on their slides?
I wish we had the matrix still there. It just depends what kind of presentation it is for. I always tell people that probably we should cut most of the presentations that we do. They shouldn't be presentations. They should be discussions around a whiteboard like we're doing now, or sitting around beanbag chairs and talking, whatever. But the high-stake ones, that takes a long time. If you're a salesperson and you repeat this presentation, or it's a big deal, like something at TED, which could change the world in a little way, well, that takes time. So you have to decide. If you're a student and this is your thesis and this is, it's a big deal, so it matters.
But like the staff meeting, so people shouldn't pick on their boss for staff meeting slides because they might not be that high stakes, but every once in a while there is a staff meeting where you're trying to change the world or change the organization, and more energy should go into that. When you're trying to transform people, that's different than just trying to broadcast information to me.
I think it's just used too much. It's kind of like design. Design is about intention. What's your intention? And most people don't think like a designer, so they don't stop and think. And so they default to tools like PowerPoint. So what if we instead stop and think, what is the most appropriate?
The meaning,
what is this all about? And when I don't use slideware that often, except when people see me. I'm in public, so I'm out in
You don't use that
keynotes.
many slides when you're teaching? Is that what you mean?
That's what I was. Thank you for finishing my sentence that I didn't finish. But that's what I mean, because teaching is, you got the 9-minute rule or the 10-minute rule. You got to do different things all the time. But it's there. Usually it's on black. There's video. I love whiteboards as a way to,
So you mix it up in the classroom environment.
Mix it up. When I did my undergrad in philosophy, this was before we used computers in a big way. So, I mean, philosophy professors certainly didn't use PowerPoint. No one was using PowerPoint. Well, this is actually before I was invented.
This was before I was born.
Thank you. But by the time, it was chalkboard in those days.
Like Einstein used back then?
Exactly like Einstein used. But before, anyway, so the professor is black. It's an empty slate. By the end of the class, end of 90 minutes, it's just full of chalk. But still, how many words how much could that be, right? Because that's not that much.
For a whole lecture to fill a whiteboard.
And our minds are bursting with, kind of like after a TED, you're stimulated. This is really interesting stuff. And the professor only wrote like key dates, maybe a diagram. I remember Allegory of the Cave, freshman year. He's like, draw an allegory. I mean, that was the visual. That's all we need. I still have that with the fire and the cave and the shadows. And it would just really suck to see that done prepackaged in PowerPoint.
Yeah,
I can't imagine how awful and what PowerPoint slides you're doing to philosophy.
Well, there's a real trend too with the Dan Rome's book. Dave Gray has a book coming out, and it's a lot about visually thinking live in real life. And I know Bill McDonough talks about how drawing in front of people makes you more human, because they see us make a mistake, like how much you had to work on her face, right? They know you're human and you're not perfect, and that makes the audience more endeared to you as a presenter. So if everything's real slick and real polished and perfect, it just comes across less human. So
you don't have to be perfect. If you perfect is boring, unless you're putting up the space shuttle. Yeah, that counts.
Close,
yes. Then
Garr's
try to be
very
perfect.
close to perfect. He's very zened
Yeah,
out.
right. That's not. Yeah. Anyway, I think we're done with this.
I love hanging out with him. We're going to dinner tonight, but thanks for your time, and we enjoyed talking to you guys.
Thanks, Paula. It's Paula behind the camera.
Thanks, Paula. Ciao.
Thank you.